You're listening to Offer Accepted, the show that is all about fostering careers in real estate and growing your real estate team. Your host is Vanessa Rosenblum. Vanessa is the president of a search firm called Pro REA Staffing, where they help real estate agents hire talented people so that they can grow their businesses. On this show, Vanessa interviews real estate industry professionals from real estate assistants to team leaders of mega teams to learn how they achieved their current level of success and what they're doing to rise to the next level in their career or business. Whether you are exploring a career in real estate or you currently run a large real estate team and you want to be better at recruiting, training, and managing your employees and agents, this is a show you'll want to follow, so don't forget to hit subscribe. All right, let's go to the show. Here's your host, Vanessa.
Hello and welcome. Episode 2 of Offer Accepted. Here we go. I have a very special guest today. I'm speaking to Danielle Glew, and Danielle and I go way back, way back. So just to give you some background, Pro REA Staffing is called Pro REA Staffing because originally we were a temp staffing agency. So back in 2008, when the market crashed, nobody needed a real estate assistant full time, and there were a ton of really talented admins who needed work. So Pro REA Staffing was born. We hired, I think, 16 or 18 assistants, and they worked for various agents throughout the Los Angeles area. And that's when I met Danielle. So Danielle became a Pro REA Staffing employee, and very quickly it was apparent that she was super talented, super capable, and could do a lot more than just go out and help agents with transactions or their database. So she started training all of the assistants that we hired at Pro REA Staffing. We did a 2-day training every time we hired a group of assistants, and she was in charge of that. And she was a lifesaver because I was able to move to Italy and work remotely. So thank you, Danielle. But eventually I introduced her to the Hoffman Murphy team in Hermosa Beach, California, and they hired her full time. And she's been there ever since. So 9 years. So I'm really excited to share her story with you because I think she is such a great example of what happens when you hire talent and you continue to give them opportunity for growth. Because she was hired as the listing coordinator.
Yeah, right? Listing marketing manager, yeah.
Yeah, and she is now, I had to write it down, lead listing partner, sales director, and team leader. So she's taken on a lot of responsibility and helped the team grow in a big way. Yeah. So let's just start at the beginning. So you were hired as the listing coordinator for the Hoffman Murphy team. What was it about that team that made you say yes to that opportunity, and what attracted you to them?
Well, a couple of things. So I was definitely on the path to wanting to be an agent. I was very clear about that, but I'd had a lot of assistant experience. And when I was introduced to them, actually as a temporary position to help them hire that role, essentially when you introduced me to them, they were actively looking. So I was placed to help them through that transition. And then I started interviewing almost immediately for their listing and marketing manager. At the time, the team was only about 5 people. So a couple buyer's agents, the partners, there's 2 mega agents. They were doing all the listings. They had one TC, and they really needed someone. What I saw an opportunity with them is that, well, one, I really liked their culture, and I could see that they did not have a successor lined up, and they were definitely towards the later years of their successful career. And the community we live in the beach cities in the South Bay is very hyper local, and people really value people who live here, are immersed in the community, and I had just moved here. So I saw an opportunity to kind of gain market knowledge and essentially like paid education and have kind of like a rapid introduction to that by joining their team. And I liked who they were and what they stood for. And in all honesty, I interviewed a bunch of people, and I just, in the time being there, got too attached and put myself in the job instead. So I thought I just saw a really big opportunity that was worth me stepping into an admin role because I could see future potential.
So were they concerned about your desire to move into a sales role?
I would say, because this comes up a lot as we look and staff for admin now, and I'm always looking to make sure that it isn't someone's ideal goal to become an agent, although our team has evolved in that sense. Then I was very clear about what my goals were. and I saw that I could really help them. So we did definitely have an understanding that it would be like a growth path, but they needed someone that could take on the admin role, but they weren't actually prepared to hire a talented, like a life staff admin. Like they didn't have the infrastructure for that yet. If that makes sense. So I was able to come in, learn from them, and make changes. And yet, of course, as expected, I was pushing for more because I'm actually not an ideal candidate for an admin. So, but was able to really grow the team. And then when I replaced myself, I was in a much better position to find what they really needed, and someone like at a higher level, and we could offer more opportunities so we could get a better talent then at the time.
Yeah, talk about that. Talk about what you had to put in place in order to attract a lifetime admin for that role.
So, well, it's definitely been a journey. So I've been here for 9 years, and our team has grown from the 5 people when I started, and now there's 13 of us. So we definitely have a much bigger structure, and we're pretty clear cut on following the traditional MREA model. And so I would say that the thing that we work on constantly is our culture and what our value is to be a part of the team, because it's not really a training ground for agents, and we're not a mini brokerage, and it's very communal, and we give back, and we love each other, and it's very close, and we have to work at that. I mean, that we have a community. One of our value propositions, and actually one of our belief systems, is that, like, it's actually the same thing as Google. It's like, we'll take care of you while you take care of work, right? So the whole concept is that we value the time you're investing here. So we're going to continue to give you as much opportunity and a culture that you want to come to work every day. So that definitely took time, and kind of figuring out who we are, and who we were then is different than who we are now. But now we have a full admin staff of 5 people, and no one has been less than 2 years. This is our most recent hire. And some of our more tenured people started, like our transaction manager, who's unbelievable, started as a college intern, and then kind of like fell in love the way I did. And we had to keep finding a place for her. She grew and became more talented, and don't think she ever anticipated being in real estate. So it just kind of works out that way.
So talk about the transition, the point where you were ready to move into a sales role and you had to replace yourself. How did that play out?
Well, so I had the convenient deadline of being pregnant. So that gave me this, it was a great opportunity, perfect timing. We had essentially agreed, the more I pushed, and it may be more clear cut in my mind, I think, than it was in Sue and Marie's mind, what the path was. But they really wanted me to have essentially like every role on the team, so that if in the end I grew into the role that I'm now, or a future CEO, I really understood the entire realm of the business. And I was new to Keller Williams, and definitely new to the area, so I did have a lot to learn in that aspect. So I probably hired Pro Area Staffing, I think, to help find someone to replace on that deadline, and to find someone. And then when I went on maternity leave, I used that as my deadline, where I came back into another role. So I basically, completed the ops manual, or at least to the best of my ability, and then hired someone much more talented than me, to come in and take it to the next level. Because I did hit a ceiling of limitation, since I would say I had the experience of being an admin, but it's not my natural skill set. So towards the end of my admin, I was already starting to take buyers, and I was prospecting daily, and I was becoming less focused on that and more what our natural behavior is.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing to talk about. So what were some of the areas that were a challenge for you, or maybe a frustration for Sue and Marie, because you weren't a natural fit for the role that you were in?
So I would say some of the things I did well before the challenges,
Yes.
I brought a lot of accountability that they didn't have. I mean, they never had structured prospecting. They had been successful traditional agents. They were building a team and following the Keller Williams model, and yet I don't think that they'd ever sat down and had like structured cold calling and accountability and tracking your numbers and script practice. So I came from a lot of training in Mike Ferry, and I brought that to the team in terms of, hey, if we're going to grow, we can't just like wait for people to call us. And they had already built this huge database, but weren't necessarily feeding it the way it should be. So we started more structured accountability around that. So in that case, I was adding more of like a sales director, and they were so great because I would come in and I was gosh 25, 24, and I'm walking up down the halls like, get on the phone, you know, I'm yelling at Stu and Marie, get on the phone. Come on, that's your job. Get on the phone. Closing the door, and they were really great about it. But it honestly, it probably irked them, but it definitely helped take us to the next level, creating that structure, and for our buyers agents too. So what I would say their biggest challenges are that I was constantly pushing for growth, more leadership control, and I'm not one to build systems. I need someone else to build them for me to follow them. They kept being like, we want systems. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. So I would say I saw a huge difference once I stepped out of that role and we hired someone who is actually a match with experience as an admin, who was, you know, had the right behavioral profile. And I could see the difference. Then I could see the holes. I mean, I thought I was doing great. I could see the holes in what I wasn't able to achieve that we really needed. So it was time for me to move on anyways. We needed someone that was much better than me in that position.
I think that's such an interesting thing to think about, right? You know, it's for somebody who's thinking about, I want to be an admin because I really want to be in sales. Sometimes you can do that. Like, you are able to make that transition and you were good enough in your role. You brought things to the role. But honestly, I mean, a lot of salespeople really should never sit in an admin seat, period, and stop. And so I think that you're a bit of a cautionary tale. Like, you're an exception to the rule. And I want to be really clear about that for everybody listening. Most people who are going to be successful in sales are not going to be successful in that admin seat. And I can actually think of a client in LA who called me one day and he goes, okay, I need help. I am dealing with a transaction that's blowing up and my assistant is showing property to my buyers. And I'm like, I know, because you hired a buyer's agent to do an admin job. And guess what? Yeah. So, okay, so you came back from maternity leave. You're now in your new sales role. It sounds like you'd already laid the groundwork for it. So,
right.
And obviously you were a new mom. And so, you probably needed flexibility as well. How did you grow? So how much oversight did you have of your new admin at that point? Or were you really just focused on your role as a buyer's agent?
Yeah, so I've kind of had my hands in all the departments since I started, mostly because we're a very small company and we work in 800 square feet. And so everyone has a little hand in everything. When I came back, so I had already been selling, I don't remember exactly, I probably did 5 to 8 units the last year of my admin role. So when I came back, I actually came back as the lead buyer specialist. So I was managing 3 other buyer's agents. And so as soon as I came back from maternity leave, it was a full-time job, and I came back and was completely focused on running that department. So I would say not really involved in the admin, except I was there so I would definitely, the cautionary tale on that is there was not adequate training for the admin, because when I left, then I was gone, right? Then I was gone. And then when I came back, I was definitely focused on another role. Now, even now, as my job is quote unquote team leader, it's the same thing. I'm still working really hands-on with the admin, although we have a director of operations in place that's holding them more specifically accountable to their tasks and projects. I still am involved in the marketing and as listing agent on what's happening with all of our listings. So I'm working with them daily. So I would say I was still around, and yet not training specifically the way they probably should have been.
Sure.
That's kind of happened there.
So in the role of your lead buyer, buyer specialist, tell me about your role as a manager in that role. So what were your responsibilities with the other buyer's agents?
So essentially, a lot of what I was doing in my admin role, as a natural byproduct of what my skill set is it kind of transferred more appropriately to my title as lead buyer specialist. So creating structured timing around prospecting, lead follow-up, running all of our script practices, writing all of our scripts that we're using for the team, recruiting, onboarding, training. And, it's interesting because I jumped right into that leadership role, and I was actually a new buyer's agent. I had sold before I joined the team, but and it didn't feel new, but there was a learning curve. I mean, definitely to jump right in and to start building a business, which and building your own database and working on that. So it was a great year. It was 2013, and I would say I felt more naturally at home in that role. It's kind of the role I've been pushing for. So I was getting to use my skill sets, and it was a much better match for me. So I wasn't feeling any frustration at work. Felt like I was like, okay, this is what I've been working for, or at least the next step. And then when we had hired an admin in the interim to take over my role as listing and marketing manager. That's when that was one person. We now have multiple people for each of those roles as we've grown into a higher volume. And it was not working out. So I think there was this, we actually staffed the wrong person. And I've definitely grown in my recruiting and understanding of CV and bringing in the right talent. So I actually met one of our star employees now, Melissa Pilon, who's our listing manager, a very high level licensed listing manager. And I met her in Mommy and Me, and we were actually out for like a mom's night. I just come back to work, and she was talking about how she had to commute to Orange County. And I basically like recruited her over wine. She was in marketing for Nissan. She was doing advertising and marketing. And I just felt like she was I could see something in her that was different, kind of identifying that grittiness that you see in someone who's like what we call talent. So then we brought her in for like a 5-month interview process because we were so gun shy of getting it wrong again. You've worked with us, so we take our time.
You do.
And we take our time and find people. And now she's been with us for 6 years, and she was a huge pivotal turn for us because she was a perfectly placed administrator. And when she started as our listing and marketing manager, she then grew into becoming our director of operations for 2 years. And that's when our company really changed, having a true admin overseeing. Because what's kind of happened, because we have 2 owners, once I stepped into a more visible leadership role with the team, the 2-headed snake became a 3-headed snake. And it's very challenging to get things approved and get things done. And so once Melissa stepped into the director of operations role, I could see, okay, this is what it really means to be a talented admin, because she was able to implement systems and like make our marketing systematic, not just like agents, like what should we do this month? Let's mail something. And it made a huge difference in our business. It's a huge difference.
That's so cool. That's fantastic. I want to circle back to one thing you talked about. So you did 5 deals while you were still an admin. Every team handles this a little differently. How did you balance your sales with your admin tasks? And, if you're willing to share, like what kind of a bonus structure were you on for your deals?
So that is not how our structure is set up now. So I would say the way that I've worked into the position that I'm in is definitely, use that as that's not what we would necessarily recommend. I think it was a unique situation. From the moment I started, I've had my eyes on being in the position where I am now, and actually the future position will be with the company once Sue and Marie have retired. So it's been a path that's very specific, every 2 years making a move. So at that point I had negotiated, since I was an agent, I was on the same split as a buyer's agent for those transactions. But it was not, I can't remember, it was a while ago, but I was still, my main tasks and responsibilities were to be the listing and marketing manager. So those things, the showings were after hours and on the weekends. I wasn't hosting open houses or taking lead calls, but it would be buyers that were generated, or for whatever reason, if they were handed to me, or if I was covering in an open house, I was working those buyers. That is not our structure now. Our admin have definitely opportunities to earn income when they bring business to the team, but they're not working. They're not sales agents, right? So I was basically a sales agent, like in sheep's clothing. So I was, right. So right now we have it set up. We definitely incentivize to bring in business. Their paid bonus, even if a call-in comes in and they're able to set an appointment, if they bring in their sphere, it's a higher percentage. And then, and they always turn it over. So any buyer they bring in, even if it's a sphere deal, they would turn it over to the buyer's team, and the lead would get rotated, and they would get partnered with an agent. So they don't actually work any transactions.
Perfect. Makes sense. And how much overtime does your admin staff end up doing? Are they working weekends? Are they doing a lot of work in the evenings as well?
So it depends. We have pretty specific seasonality. So like right now is our busy season. Spring is kind of crazy. We would find that we're working much longer days. I'm looking at my calendar. I've got like 3 12-hour days in a row. it won't always be like that. Then come August, it's sleepy and it's much more relaxed, right? Not always on purpose, but that's just how it happens. It's a byproduct. So what I would say is that it depends on the role. Our listing manager, Melissa, so Melissa was our director of operations, and then we really missed, she's an IS, not to get off topic on the disc, but we really missed her finesse in talking with clients and with talking with agents. She's really good at kind of the art of negotiation and managing that. And she wasn't really interacting with anyone as director of operations that way. So we actually moved her back into that role. And so she works like a lot. I mean, she is like a junior agent for all intents and purposes, an admin, but she is our main support for both Laura and myself as the listing agents. So she probably works evenings and weekends, right? Managing, mostly, fielding calls and things like that to stay on top of her workload. Our director of operations, pretty typical 40-hour work week, much more structured because she's not dealing with the clients that create that, craziness. And our marketing manager, JT, works pretty consistently 40 hours a week unless she has like a big deadline or we have a big event. And then we do a lot of client events. So our team does do after hours in that sense because we probably have an event once a month. Depending on the size, it could be like a 20-person seminar or a 400-person community event, in which case it's all hands on deck. So we do have, some odd hours. The doors aren't shut at 5:30, that way.
Right. Got it. Well, while we're on the topic of assistants, let's talk about your hiring process because you guys really embrace career visioning, the Keller Williams hiring process. So tell me like why that's so important to you and the impact it's had on your business.
So, well, we definitely can see the value of hiring someone that's in a right behavior match for their role. So, and we honor the system. I mean, we are not trying to recreate the wheel. We've seen the destruction and the cost of a bad hire, right? We've actually been pretty lucky in that sense, but it's taken a long time to really build this like special culture we have. And I know even recruiting agents, I feel the same way. We follow very similar and very slow to recruit anyone to our team. It's not just a body. Like you have to earn a right. You have to earn a right to the chair in our office because one bad hire, one bad attitude, or someone who's not a good match takes valuable training time away. And it can just be like a cancer. So we have this very cool thing going. It's a very great place to work. So we have to protect that and very like protective to make sure it stays that way. So we follow the CD process like to a T. I mean, you've worked with us, so you see we take it seriously and it can be very time consuming. I spent all of last year interviewing for our director of operations. It was well worth the wait. It was well worth the wait to talk to a lot of people to find the right person. And I've done a lot of life stories. I know about a lot of people that I'll never meet again, which is kind of weird. But it's just important that we value the models that Keller Williams has built for us. There's no reason for us to doubt it. We're very successful. We're continuing to be more successful the more we lean into it. So why not? Why not follow what they've set out for us?
Yeah, definitely. And what are some of the red flags that you see that other people could learn from as you're going through your hiring process? What are some of the things that come up that tell you someone's not a good fit?
Well, so depending on the role that you're looking for, I would say I have an easier time hiring agents and being able to see. Sorry, it's still beeping. That's okay. So I have a much easier time identifying with agents because I can see the challenges they would face because I am an agent, right? So it's much easier. With an admin, honestly, interviewing admin is really hard for me because it's so time consuming and perhaps we don't have the same skill set. So I want to make sure that I'm following the process to ask the right questions, right? To make sure that I'm understanding what they're saying and that they're a good fit. I would say some red flags when you're looking. One thing for me is following my gut because sometimes it's like they're saying all the right things and it's going really well. And then there's just like, I just don't see them working here. And it's not very tangible. And that's actually hard to define. So to be really confident that you understand what your team's vision is and that this person is really in line with their vision and that And it's not right for them either. I always try to protect them. It's not right to hire someone if they can't have a really big career within your world, then it's not the right fit. So I try to be really cognizant of that. It can be challenging though, because once you get to life story with people, it's pretty hard not to connect with them at some level. So we just try to follow it and never, ever, ever skip the reference checks.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, positively, thinking someone is the exact fit and you've spent hours. I mean, you could be at 12 hours by now and you're thinking, Jesus, just hire them already. I can't sit through another interview. And then something will come up on the references and you have to dig deeper. We actually, in a previous hire, kind of were so, one, felt like exhausted from the process, felt like we'd found the right talent for our director of operations. And then something kind of weird came up on the reference checks. And it wasn't something that necessarily was that they'd said about the person. It was their reaction to us digging deeper. And we thought, oh, it's us. We didn't present it correctly. We are being kind of invasive by going 3 deep, right? That we take this opportunity where someone gives us a reference and then we give them warning, but we keep asking for more people. And honestly, that person ended up not being a right fit. And a lot of these things that came out, that was kind of a pattern of behavior, the way that reaction was. So it wasn't that she did anything wrong in her past job, but the reaction that wasn't in line with our culture ended up being exactly how she showed up. So it was interesting. And you're in it so deep, it's hard to say, no, this isn't feeling right. Stop. It's very challenging, right?
Yeah, listening to your gut is so important. Like nothing else matters. Everything can line up, but you got to listen to your gut.
Absolutely.
All right. So talk about your transition from your buyer specialist role into being the lead listing partner.
Sure. So conveniently enough, I got pregnant again. So I had another deadline, essentially 2 years in that role. And rather than, since I was going to be out for 6 months, rather than come back to that same role, we felt like there was an opportunity to make a transition into becoming a listing partner with the team. So what I would say is, it's interesting, is that was a really big step for our team. We actually didn't have listing agents. Our listing agents were our mega agents. So it was just Sue and Marie. They were still in production and they had not given up that yet, nor would I think that they were actually ready. I think I actually pushed them to being ready based on the timing of everything, that it just didn't seem right to come back as a buyer's agent. It felt like the natural progression, and also time to promote our top producing buyer's agent who needed growth. It was like, we need to be able to continue to grow her as well. And this is an opportunity to not keep her in that position and move her up. So it was kind of like forced into that. And it was a transition. It was a rough first year as listing agent as they worked it out, because they were like not really ready to give it up, not really fully confident that they were ready to give up their baby in the business, handling all of their listings. So it was a challenging year. And we've definitely changed the way we're compensated, changed the way the whole listing team works from working out kinks from that first year. Because how they had set it up was essentially, because they weren't ready for that yet, it was like a very specific philosophy. We're hiring you to build more business, not take a piece of the pie we already have, but to make our piece bigger. And it was a great discovery in our business as well, is that that's not really how our business grows. We're very relationship based. Over 60% from our database. We don't do a lot of cold business, so it's 60% database, about 35% farm, and that those relationships take time. And so it's not like someone could just show up one day and start making calls every day. And our environment's not conducive to setting appointments same day, getting it signed, signing a track home, getting it sold. It's much more of a finesse in the high-end luxury market. So we worked through it, and now we've structured the team much differently, and it's been excellent.
So are there more listing agents now?
Yes. So what happened then when I came back is Marie, one of our partners, actually unexpectedly became ill and had some health problems. She's back and healthy now, but she was gone for an entire year, and that like thrust all of the responsibility. It was kind of by force that she had to step out of production, which instantly gave me an opportunity to learn at a very quick, very rapid pace. And I wanted every single appointment with Sue. So They definitely always use the partner model when on every appointment together. We started to move away from that. We do it when it's necessary, but just by sheer volume increase, we need to like leverage our time and go individually. So it's been Sue and I working as the listing partners, essentially 50-50, depending on our schedules. We'll go together when we need to. Otherwise, we just kind of split it up depending on the scheduling, who's the lead. So our listing team is now, it's non-competitive. So essentially our job as the listing agents, because we have so much business that we've built coming in, we are prospecting for new business, but essentially my job is to service the business that's coming in, right? Which is an awesome job and a huge opportunity for listing agents when your team's structured that way. So now Sue, after being in production without Marie for the past 2.5 years, is like, okay, well, I want to not be in production now and spend more time with my grandkids and focus more on the financials of the business and some other business growth development opportunities we want to take, and not be meeting with sellers after 35 years. So we promoted Laura, who was our lead buyer specialist and our most tenured agent, into the listing partner role. And so now it's her and I, and she's still in training. She's just outside of her 90 days. And now it's about 80% just Laura and I going on appointments, and Sue's kind of like dwindling out from our inventory from the end of last year. And by the end of the year, it will just be Laura and I.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, and it's so great for Sue and Marie too, to be able to build this legacy and be able to do what's next for them as well. I can imagine that letting go of that, especially when past clients came back and said, I want you to list my property, was really hard. And how did the clients respond to that when they called and said, okay, I'm ready to list my home, and you showed up instead of Sue or Marie?
So it's interesting. When I first started here, this is an objection we had to work with all the time. And honestly, I felt like it was more coming from their feelings of fear around it rather than the client. And as we've grown and really established very clear expectations of service and focused all of our energy into being a world-class customer service company that happens to sell real estate, our clients are loyal to the service we provide, and it really has nothing to do with the person that's there. We've kind of removed that that it has to be a specific person. It really should be the way for anyone on our team. And definitely with Sue and Marie, it's been a transition. And now I would say over the last 3 years, we don't hear it ever. It's just not the expectation. Now, if a client calls Marie specifically and is like, oh, Marie, remember I sold my home with you 10 years ago and I just want it to be you. I just want it to be with you. She wouldn't say like, well, I don't do that anymore, so you can't meet with me. She'd probably set the initial meeting and bring me. And as soon as they meet me, they'll see, oh, well, you're actually the person I need to talk to, because it's very clear that's not what Marie's doing anymore. So she does the introduction, and then they're quite happy. The same way most of our sellers are quite happy and prefer to be talking to Melissa after I take the listing, because she's giving them all they need and all they want. So we've definitely created pretty bulletproof systems in that sense, that as long as we stick to what our quality of service is, right, then people are satisfied and they keep coming back.
Yeah. I had that same experience in my business because, as you know, I don't actually do recruiting anymore, and letting go of the retained search clients, those past clients, was so hard. I mean, that was my baby. I mean, it sounds so familiar, but trusting and then, letting go and just stepping back was incredible. And so for people who are listening, it's possible. You can do it if you have the right people in place. It's not as scary as you think. Your clients will be okay. The world's not going to fall apart. I mean, really, I just thought everyone was going to go up in arms because I wasn't handling their search, and it's not the case. As long as the service is the same, they don't care. They just want
I would say a perfect example, because I was, of course, wanting to talk with you, right? I mean, I had the same thing. I'm like, but Vanessa's my girl. Like, what? I want to talk with Vanessa. We have a relationship. And that is a great example of it's all about talent. So Sarah's exceptional. When she stepped into that role, I didn't really even notice a difference. I mean, so it's the service you provide. And if the service is still excellent, then great. Yeah. You're still there if I want to talk to you.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Sue and Marie are still,
yeah, they're still there. They're still they very much have a presence, and who they are is still well within the company. And I would say we've seen other teams that don't, because we're at like level 6. We're definitely not level 7 yet, a true level 7 where they're not even here anymore. When I've seen other teams that we mastermind with, we're in Gary Keller's top 100 group, that haven't gone as well, it's usually because they make the transition too fast and they don't have the right infrastructure in place or the right who in place. And then what you're seeing is that it's that your clients they are being loyal to the service and you're not providing it anymore. So, and when there's a discrepancy that way, and that comes from, I feel like, from the mega agent, making sure that they put the right person in place and train them correctly and be patient. If you do it too quick, then change is hard. But if it's a slow process, even for us, our logo has always been Sue and Marie. And I mean, for a long time, I'm like, we really have to get you off of there, because if you want people to stop calling asking for you, your face is on the sign. And it's been a very slow transition, but it's such strong brand recognition. So it's like we started taking it off in one place, another place, and then just, using our logo, but still with their photo. And so far it hasn't affected our business. It's continued to grow at a pretty rapid pace.
Fantastic. I want to talk about your growth as a leader. Did you have any management experience before you joined the Hoffman Murphy team?
It's funny you say that. I was reading some of the potential questions that we could talk about today, and I guess I never thought that I didn't have any management experience. I asked my husband last night, went to bed, I'm like, hey, before this job, did I actually ever manage anyone? Because I can't really remember. It feels like I'm always managing people. And he's like, maybe in your mind, but no, not really. So I've never had any formal management experience. Now, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, so I've always kind of worked for myself. This is the most not working for myself ever, and it's a perfect balance for me of still feel like I'm building my own business within a business. So no, and then I was reflecting on that, is that was just a natural progression as I stepped into even as when I stepped into listing and marketing roles in admin, it was definitely the expectation that they wanted me to be managing our transaction manager and our runner. So, and our transaction manager had been here for 10 years and was 25 years my senior. So that was challenging. It was definitely challenging. And I really had to work on my communication skills and work with my coach. We definitely believe in coaching, and I've had a coach since I started. Even when I was an admin, they were really great about, I didn't have a full-time MAPS coach right away, but they would lend me their coach. And now it's part of my compensation. I have a mastery coach that works with me and is huge in helping develop that, especially as I grow and I come into challenges. And I can't necessarily lend on past experience, right? And coming into now managing all, 11 people. And quite honestly, Sue and Marie, if I'm being transparent, I manage them too. And it's definitely been a journey. So no, I didn't.
So let's talk about managing somebody 25 years your senior and coming into that role underneath them and then becoming their manager. So how did you approach that, and what did you learn through that process?
So my leadership style is definitely one where I want to gain trust and build relationship before I start making any changes. So I worked really hard to just show by my actions my value, right? And that it's not a top down positional leadership. And I'm not even sure it was clearly conveyed to her that was my role from Sue and Marie. So I had to live a really
that's rough.
So I just started by showing up. I just started by showing up, making changes within the company to benefit everyone, making positive improvements, and always being on their team. So I've had this unique situation in my role of being Sue and Marie's confidant and in the inner circle, and they've really brought me up through the ranks and taught me a lot. And I've definitely been on the inside. And yet, if I'm going to be one of the people, if I'm going to have a close relationship, be able to lead and manage everyone, they need to be able to trust me. So there's this dance in between both. We're a cohesive team, and yet it still is a business, and there's a boss and there's employees. And so being able to be that person in the middle that knows and hears, I was joking, I'm like the mom that hears and knows everything, but knowing what's appropriate to act on when someone's confiding me because they trust me as their friend, and when they're actually asking for help as their boss or manager. And I try to just use my best moral judgment on that to not ever cross a line where I lose their trust, because then I'll lose they won't follow me anymore. So with Carol, our transaction manager at the time, it took building her trust that it wasn't some young 24-year-old know-it-all, right, showing up. And she could see that I was skilled, that I was talented, and that I was just there to help support and make things better for her and I. And then we ended up having an amazing relationship. But I start with that first, and that takes time. I think that takes time. And to hear and ask questions like, what is it that you need? What is it that you want to see change? Because you get from people who've been there before you, you get a lot of, well, you don't know because you haven't been here. You have no idea what it's like, And I have to find myself not doing that to the new people that we hire as well. Like, okay, well, you just got here, so just hold on, just wait and allow them to develop their leadership too and assess it.
And talk about accountability. I mean, accountability is a really big deal on your team and, at all levels. What's your approach to holding people accountable? And is it different for your admin staff versus your sales staff?
Yes, so it is different. For our admin staff, our director of operations handles managing them. She does all of their 411s, and we're very strict about doing that each week. Their 411s would be much more project-based than our sales team 411s, which is much more about their accountability and are they on track to hit their goals. And
for the people who are not KW, explain what a 411 is.
Okay, so 411 is it's a weekly meeting that you have, and essentially a 411 is a document that we use that takes your annual goals and breaks it down by what you need to achieve each month, and then by month what you need to achieve each week. So there's 4 weeks, and as a sales agent, it's going to be very numbers driven and production based. For the admin, it may be your big rock project. So for example, Melissa may be working on completely revamping our seller lead follow-up program, right? And so her deadline may be March 1st. So then in February, there may be pieces she needs to achieve each week. And our director of operations would be saying, how are things going? What are your big challenges? What can I provide for you to make sure that we hit that deadline? So to keep things moving forward. For sales agents 411s, it's more like they want to open 3 escrows. They need to have 8 buyer consultations. They need to make 100 contacts. And reviewing what they did last week in comparison to what they need to achieve this week. But essentially, if you do everything each week, by the end of the month, you'll have achieved all your goals. And by the end of the year, you'll hit all the things you want to do.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks for summarizing that. All right. So what do you do when people are not meeting their goals?
So with the sales team, we've actually really stepped up in our accountability in terms of, I'd say that was kind of our biggest challenge because we're so close and have such a family-like relationship. Just like in your family, it's kind of hard to hold people to standards, right? So you put standards in place, and yet, you want everyone to like you, and it can be really challenging. And, oh, you were sick that week. And we've definitely fallen into that trap in years past. And actually, it was by the urging of some of our buyer's agents last year as we've grown and become more of a true structured business, not just a group of people, trying to sell real estate, that they were kind of asking, we need more strict accountability standards. So because it started to feel unfair about how leads were being distributed, right? So when we were smaller, these things were much more manageable and it was much more casual. And now, especially as I step out and can't follow that day-to-day, who everybody's working with and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, we had to create like passive accountability standards. So the standards were already there, but now how are we enforcing them? So we've actually, our amazing transaction manager and tech specialist, Jess, created our own basically company intranet, which has been huge for our team as a way to communicate to everybody what's going on. And she put in place all these automatic trackers, which have all the agents' numbers on view and on blast to everyone. And essentially what we've done is we've created minimum standards that they have to hit, and it's automatic. So they have to put their numbers in every day. This is not new. This is what all agents are supposed to be doing. But at the end of the month, if they don't hit 70, there's like 4 quadrants, and it has to do with their prospecting. Essentially, if they don't hit a minimum standard, which is about 75%, and at least 2 of the 4, so in my opinion, very minimum standards, then they're off rotation for an entire month. Okay. So they don't get any leads from the team for the whole month. If they go 2 months, they're not meeting the standard, then they are off of they can't do open houses or phone and internet. And if they go the third month, then the conversation is really like, do I hear resignation? Because you're not a good fit. So the biggest change was in December when we did it. It was like, we kept reminding them, just so you know, there's no grace. If you don't hit it, you're not on rotation. I know in times past we've been last. We will not be. It's not up to me. I just say what the computer says. So if you're not putting your numbers in, I had to remove myself from it.
Yeah.
So they persuade me, oh, but this happened and this happened. And so now it's just, that is what it is. And it was a hard first month because they all assumed, well, because it was Christmas and the holidays, oh, I'm sure we'll start next month. And we didn't. And so it took the first month, 2 people being off of rotation. I don't think we'll ever be off again. They did not like that. Right.
Yeah,
so
I bet.
Yeah, look at this. But they're not upset about it because we all agreed to it and we had everyone in agreement. And now it's happening automatically, which removes a huge part of the stress of managing all of that and people being upset about it. And so it's helped a lot.
That's such a great system. That makes so much more sense and so much easier for you. And how many transactions do you guys do a year now?
So last year we did 128 transactions and 135 million in volume. And this year we're on track to do 180 units and about 170 million in volume.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. I feel like we learned so much about what it takes to grow a mega team and the kind of the inner workings of it, and how you take somebody from listing coordinator all the way up to team leader and eventually CEO, right? That's the next step?
That's the next step.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was so great to connect with you again and learn all about your path.
Sure. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Offer Accepted, the podcast for fostering careers in real estate and growing a successful real estate team. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. You can also check us out on YouTube. Search Pro REA Staffing and you'll find this and a ton more content all around hiring and managing your growing real estate team and launching your career in real estate. We'll see you in the next episode.